proceeding very well, then we're going to work toward getting a small information kiosk that basically will, as people are walking or bicycling or whatever on the greenway, that this will be a little, source of information for what's coming up, and again, to try to inform people about overhead utility lines and proper plant selection. And we'll install some tree-mounted labels. We don't want any freestanding labels because they can be a hazard near a walking path, and they also are more likely to be vandalized, stolen, whatever. There are ways you can mount the trees or mount the labels on the trees. It won't affect them. And then, of course, just maintain the plant material. And there may be some other areas where, if this is successful, that we could, do something similar. So, does anybody have any questions, comments?
What's the timeline on this?
The plant material should be planted before the end of this year.
And what's the length of that that space where the Arboretum will be?
Probably about, I'd say 500 feet or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not super long. It's, again, I wanted to keep it kind of relatively compact so that people knew it was something different that they were going through, but yet, big enough to where it would have a visual impact. Anybody have any other questions?
Anybody in the audience? In that case, do we have a motion for approval?
Making a motion to approve the Arboretum.
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I beat you to it.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll look forward to getting out and seeing that.
Yeah, I look forward to, hopefully it'll do what it's supposed to do. We'll see.
Move on to item number 7, discussion and public hearing on an amendment to the Farragut zoning ordinance, Chapter 4, Section 12, sidewalks and other pedestrian facilities, to require sidewalks or walking trails on all commercial streets and to have internal connectivity.
Excuse me. In your packet is a copy of Resolution PC 1012, which recommends approval of Ordinance 1018, which is also in your packet. We discussed this at the last Planning Commission meeting, and in essence, in the staff write-up, I point out the direct citations from the approved pedestrian and bicycle plan, and I also have done a marked up copy in red showing the proposed changes from our existing ordinance, and that is reflected directly in Ordinance 1018. Staff recommends approval of Resolution PC 1012.
Anybody have any additional questions on this?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item,
Just one quick question. What was the ordinance, what was the problem with the ordinance so that we had to amend it?
It wasn't in compliance with what had been approved as part of the pedestrian and bicycle plan.
Okay.
We just updated it.
All right.
There's nothing technically wrong with the ordinance. We just needed to amend it to enact what was to implement the plan. This is the implementation phase of the plan.
Thanks.
item number 8 is discussion of the policy to require all property owners to agree to change to platted building envelopes in attached single-family developments. And this is for discussion only tonight.
Yes, it is. We talked about this at the last planning commission meeting at the request of Ken Russell with the price of the cottages at the Price Farm. And because it wasn't on the agenda, we decided to put it on our agenda this month to talk about in greater detail. Ed can give you a background of this also, and please supplement what I say, because this happened so many years ago, I'm having a hard time remembering the details of how we came about with this. And I do not remember which development triggered this policy, if it was Waverly Court or which one it is, but it's pretty much on every plat since I've been here. I do specifically remember the Planning Commission, this being discussed at the Planning Commission, and the concern, and I think the concern was actually initiated at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and it was initiated by a developer, if I remember correctly, that that a developer puts a lot of effort into how a development looks. It's a package deal and this is all dealing with just attached single family. This has nothing to do with detached single family or anything. And the concern is that when people buy into a development, they're buying into the whole package deal, not just their unit, but every other unit in the development. Because of the close proximity, it has a lot more bearing on it. And so the concern was that once the building envelopes were platted, that if there were modifications to the building envelopes, that it would have to be approved unanimously by the residents, and then also by the Planning Commission. And I think what we were dealing with and what we have dealt with since then and we're envisioning is that the unit is already built, and then somebody comes in and says, hey, you know, I really want to build on that family room in the back, or I really want to build in a sunroom, and then there's concerns about consistency and integrity of the development. This is the first time we've ever really dealt with what Ken presented to us, where it's actually the developer that's making modifications after the plat has already been recorded. And in fact, you know, he brought modifications, and we have the concept plan and the preliminary plat. And if you remember, I was like, okay, how do you all want to deal with this? Because we hadn't ever dealt with it. We came up with a plat note, and when I say we, I mean staff and David Rogers came up with a plat note of what to use.
Can you tell who David Rogers?
David Rogers was our town attorney at that time, and I was told to put something together and have David approve it, and then we've been using that plat note ever since then. In the plat note, it's the building footprints as shown indicate porches, decks, and all appurtenances thereof, and are the maximum building envelopes. Future changes to footprints must be approved by the Planning Commission and must be unanimous request by all the homeowners. And as Ken can tell you, and I think he has, is, you know, when we first started meeting about this, I was saying, be real generic with your footprints so that you can put your little alcoves and your architectural features that make it unique. Just do a square, even though that's not really what you're going to do, because it gives you flexibility as a designer. But it doesn't necessarily allow for the addition of another room or enclosing something that, you know, they really don't have intended as closing. This was never an amendment to the subdivision regulations. The subdivision regulations, the Planning Commission has the authority to require this if they so choose. I think that Ken has brought up some good points, and as we discussed at the last meeting, now's probably a good time to formalize this, exactly what it is that you would like to see with regards to how we want to deal with this. Like I said, from what I remember, the primary concern was the developer wanting this to protect their investment from John Doe residents saying, I want to modify this, and it isn't really something the developer had in mind, and the developer is still going through the process of finishing up the development, and also as a protection for the homeowners that nobody likes to be the bad guy. So if it has to be unanimous, yeah, that there's like, okay, we have to do something of high enough quality that everybody will like it. So it kind of forces a quality issue. I know Ken, he canceled his meal tonight. And he is here to, you know, add whatever, and that kind of gives you the background. Ed, I don't know if you have anything to add to it. I mean,
Shallow on that?
Would you mind coming up here? Sorry about that, but we can't, the folks at home can't hear you.
I think it's Shiloh. I'm Gene Larson, by the way, from Shiloh. But the main thing that we have come up with over the years is where we added sun porches or screen porches over the deck, which is 12 feet wide along the back of each of the units. And problem, well, I don't know that it was a problem. They did have to each one get a permit, a building permit, and be approved by the town, by the builder or whoever added it. And that's what we have done, and we have probably, out of 37 units, we probably have 10 or 12 or so that have added those. And on none of them have we intruded or gone beyond the deck on that. I know at Turkey Creek 2 or 3, they had a problem. I happen to know a person there who had a problem that wanted to add a sun porch over the deck, but somehow it was within a 25 feet of a lot line or something that was too
they're
close.
actually, their decks and stuff are actually within their maximum building envelope. In Turkey Creek Harbor, their decks encroached into the building setback requirements, so they weren't ever allowed to add roofs and close them or anything like that. So kind of two different situations, but.
The only other thing that I know that happened at Shiloh is after several had been approved, they got to looking at the Southern Building Code and found that some of those sun porches were built where they were actually covering the window, the only window in the master bedroom, and that was a no-no. You have to have a direct exit through a window or something from a bedroom that doesn't have any other exit to the outside. But so that's pretty well been stopped, and we haven't added any since. It's been several years probably now since we have added any of those. I don't know that this has any direct bearing on adding there. We have not tried to add anything to any buildings.
I don't think you guys have ever
I think it was,
gone
I think it was
through
all
this
the fact that there was
process.
a period of time when it was, you know, the communication between all the folks that had a vested interest in it to make sure they understood what was happening.
Yeah.
So it's from that perspective, I don't remember too much from the builder or the developer.
See, I remember talking to Bob Money about it, and he's the one, but he wasn't Waverly Court. But Waverly Court was well underway before I got here, but it seems like that was the development that kind of triggered this. And I know Shiloh was built before I came here, but it was with the home, but it was, like I said, it was the after fact thing, and like, I think you, now that you said that, that kind of triggers something else too that I remember us all talking about.
Gene, when people have done this and they've gone to the other residents to get this okay, has there been any problem with that?
No, we haven't. As far as I remember, there was no approval by the neighbor there because there is a wall between each unit, a concrete block wall. It's a foot thick, I guess. It goes out the entire length, and if they added, they just did it and did get the approval from the town. And I think probably the board would have approved that as they wanted to do it. Our board, the board from, the Shiloh Board of Directors.
See, their additions that he's talking about, those sunrooms, didn't actually exceed past their platted footprint, so it wasn't like they had to go through the same process that we were talking about with Ken at the last meeting.